Every night at exactly 12:04 a.m., a 20-pound Maine Coon named Onyx gets up, stretches with the deliberate unhurry of someone who has nowhere else to be, and begins his rounds. Living room, hallway, kitchen, back door, then Maya's bedroom doorway, where he pauses for exactly 3 seconds before returning to the foot of her bed and settling back down like a guard completing a shift change. Maya slept through all of it for 14 months. Then she set up a camera. Maya had not planned on the cat. She had not planned on a lot of things that turned out to matter. She was 29 and living alone in a second-floor apartment that she had furnished gradually, in the way people do when they're not entirely sure how long they're staying. A small couch, a bookshelf she had assembled incorrectly and never fixed, a kitchen table with 3 chairs because she had only needed 3, and the 4th was still in a flat-pack box under her bed. She had been a light sleeper since college, the kind of person who woke at sounds that weren't there, who lay in the dark cataloging small anxieties until the ceiling started to get lighter. She had tried the usual things, melatonin, chamomile, a sleep podcast about ocean sounds that she eventually stopped playing because it made her feel like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Nothing worked. She woke at 2 a.m. and again at 4 and spent her mornings moving through a half fog that only lifted around noon, just in time for it to start building again. Onyx arrived sideways, like things that stay always seem to. Her friend Jordan had found him behind a restaurant on a Tuesday night, enormous and unbothered, sitting next to a dumpster with the composure of someone who had chosen to be there. He was dark gray, nearly black, with fur that was long and layered and slightly chaotic, and eyes that caught the light in a way that made him look like he was always thinking about something he hadn't decided to share yet. Jordan already had 2 cats and a firm lease clause against a third. Maya had agreed to take him for 2 weeks. That was 14 months ago. Onyx had apparently not been briefed on the 2-week timeline and made no effort to observe it. By the 3rd night, he had abandoned the bed Maya had set up in the hallway and positioned himself at the foot of her bed with the quiet certainty of someone who had already done the math. She moved him twice. He returned both times with the patience of someone who understood that eventually she would stop. She did. The house changed after that. Not loudly, not in any way she could have pointed to if someone had asked her, just the way a room changes when something shifts in the corner of it that you weren't looking at directly. Onyx did not fill the apartment the way a person would. He filled it the way a solid thing fills a space that had been a little too hollow. Not by taking up room, but by making the room feel like it had a reason. Within 2 weeks, she started sleeping through the night. She didn't notice at first. The absence of something you've carried for years doesn't announce itself the way a pain does when it leaves. She just woke up one morning at 6:30 and realized she had been asleep since 11 and couldn't remember waking up once. She thought it was a coincidence. It happened again the next night and the next. She had stopped taking melatonin without deciding to. The glass of water on her nightstand was still full in the morning, which meant she hadn't been sitting up in the dark drinking it at 3 a.m. like she used to. She mentioned it to her friend Claire over coffee. Claire asked what had changed. Maya thought about it and said, "I think it might be the cat." Claire looked at Onyx, who was sitting on the windowsill examining the street below with the focused attention of a city inspector. "He does look like he has a plan," Claire said. Maya set up the camera on a Thursday, a small thing propped on the dresser angled at the bed. She watched the footage the next morning, still in her robe, her first cup of coffee cooling in her hand. 12:04 a.m. Onyx lifted his head from the foot of the bed. He looked at Maya. Then he stood, stretched once from nose to tail, and walked the full length of the mattress with the unhurried confidence of someone with a standing appointment. He pressed himself against her back, his chin resting near her shoulder blade. His eyes were open. He was not sleeping. He watched the room, the door, the window, the hallway beyond it, steady and completely still. 23 minutes later, he walked back to the foot of the bed, turned twice in a circle that served no apparent structural purpose, and lay down. Maya set down her coffee. She watched it again. then a third time. Then she pulled up the night before, 12:04 a.m. Same walk, same position, seems slow surveillance of the room before he returned to his spot. She went back as far as the camera's memory allowed, 2 weeks, and found the same thing every single night, never more than 7 minutes from midnight in either direction. Always the same route, always the same deliberate pause at her back, always watching before he returned. He had been doing this since the second week she had him. She had slept through all of it. She called Claire and described the footage. Claire was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maya, he decided you were his responsibility." Maya said, "He is a cat." Claire said, "He is a Maine Coon. That is a different thing." Maya looked at Onyx. He was back on the windowsill, monitoring the street with the patient gravity of someone who had been assigned to it. He did not look like a cat who had been found behind a restaurant with no particular plan. He looked like someone who had arrived, assessed what needed doing, and quietly taken on the work without asking for credit or acknowledgement or a formal job description. She had not slept reliably in 4 years. He fixed it in 2 weeks alone, in the dark, without being asked, without saying anything about it. Onyx is still here. He still weighs 20 pounds and has never once used the bed in the hallway. He still makes his midnight rounds every single night, the same route, the same timing, the same 3-second pause at the door before returning to his post. Some nights Maya wakes up just long enough to feel the familiar weight settle against her back. She doesn't open her eyes, she just feels him there, steady and warm and completely certain, doing what he decided was his job on the third night in an apartment he was only supposed to stay in temporarily. She never found out where he came from before the restaurant. She stopped trying to. It doesn't seem to matter anymore. Some things don't arrive with explanations. They arrive with a purpose they've already decided on. Onyx arrived with his. And so, finally, did she. Would you have kept him, or would you have given him away? Tell me in the comments.